What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Become a Local Leader. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and on today's episode, we have a leader in intellectual property, an expert in law, a specialist in trademarks and patents. He's also been an IP counsel for many Silicon Valley startups. So for all the tech startups listening, get ready for this one because you might need his help. He is the CEO of a law firm who uses advanced technology himself to deliver exceptional services to their clients, including electronic workflows, billing engines, and paperless practices. So he knows tech and he knows law. So get excited to get to know and learn from Andrew Currier. Thanks for being on the show.
It's nice to meet you.
So why don't you let everyone know what your firm does, what does PCK or Perry Currier do, and we'll just start with that first.
For sure. So PCK, which is what we're calling ourselves now, is a boutique intellectual property firm. What we do is focus really tightly on acquiring excellent patents and trademarks for companies of any size, whether they're startup, mid-size, or full growth. We do this around the world, and I guess really notably is that we keep offices in Canada and the United States, so we're really great at helping anybody who's got any cross-border issues.
And how, specifically with how you help tech startups, because we have a bunch of tech startups listening and watching, what are some of the things you do for them?
Yeah, so I think the differentiator that we have with tech startups is that a bunch of us have spent time in tech startups ourselves. I've been general counsel for one, IP counsel inside another. We really understand the issues that startups are facing, and it really is the classic issues around budget, culture, and just where do you want to deploy your resources. And so we like to spend a lot of time with the company. We don't want to talk about law, we just want to talk about who are you as a startup, what it is that's important to you. And then we'll build an IP program that is going to be absolutely tailored to the right stages for that company, and then we'll follow the growth with them. So just keep reporting into us when the fundraising's happening, when success points are happening, and we'll gradually help revise that budget and program so that it fits exactly with what the company's trying to achieve.
So how early do companies come to you? Like, could it be as early as like their first year in business before much has even happened, or is it much later they start coming to you?
It varies a lot. I'd say the ideal workflow is make some kind of introductions early on. You might be too early to actually do any work, and I think actually this would relate to how you and I first met each other. Is you just want to have that kind of initial interview about what are the issues and the pain points that you might be looking for, so that you can know the right moment to get IP services going. The problem is if you get them too late, you may never get them back. And I don't know how many heartbreak stories I've had where I'm like, nothing I can do for you. And meanwhile, somebody big or some other company's gone and basically taken the idea. The other mistake is to come in too early and write giant checks to lawyers at that stage, and that's not a good use of your burn either. So I'd say, try to get that relationship going early on, and hopefully connect with the right person, and then they're going to help you and kind of just hit that exact right moments of when you got to take action before you get yourself in any trouble.
Why do you think startups write a big check too early?
So I think that problem has gone down a lot, and I'm dating myself here, but I would say that when money was easy to find, it would sometimes be something that would make you feel like you were achieving something. Well, I got to go to a lawyer, and I got to go get myself a patent, and I got to get myself a trademark. And so you get this illusion that you're actually moving the business forward, and in a way you are, but you're not really kind of getting down to chasing revenue, right? You've done a good job on your expense line at that point, but you haven't chased the revenue side. So I think that's the trap, is kind of falling into the illusion that you've done something when in fact you might have pulled the trigger a little bit too early on something. It's tough because you might pull it too late as well, and that's where sometimes people will take what I'm just saying right now and kind of blow off that conversation. Just do have the conversation early, but be asking yourself exactly when the right moment to pull the trigger is.
What are some of the signs that say you should be pulling the trigger?
So one thing you have to ask is, as any company should be asking, is what are my points of difference? What's my value proposition? And typically, from my lens of the world, there'll be things that are really essentially brand plays, I would put Facebook, for example, as a very broad example of something that's more of a brand play, as opposed to something that's more of a pure tech play. Try to think one off the top of my head. Something that you wouldn't normally see Intel would be more of a tech play. Now, there's always some kind of balance between brand and tech, but knowing what it is that's driving the consumer to you, And is it the fact that you've got a neat piece of technology that's different from somebody else? Or is it the fact that you're creating a brand experience that people feel safe with and want to grow with? Of course, if it's on the brand side, then you're going to be pushing a lot harder on a trademark registration strategy. But if you've got tech that's differentiating you, then you're going to be much more heavily on a patent side. I get companies that come in and they think they're one, and in fact, after we spend a bit of time together, they're really the other. And that's, again, why that early conversation is important. So it's a lot about just doing that, asking yourself those questions up front. What are my value propositions? What are my points of difference? And when you have that initial consultation with your attorney, get them to see if they can, again, start helping to map you, whether it's a blend of patents, whether it's patents alone, trademarks, or a combination of each that you're going to be chasing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we have a big audience in real estate, whether they be agents, brokers, team leaders, or the startups in the real estate and property tech space. When you think about that industry, what are some of the things that you have done for those people, and what are some of the things that you're seeing going to be happening in the future?
For sure. So, I mean, firstly, what an exciting industry to be disrupting tech in at the moment, and I'm sure that your audience is very well aware of that. And I would say it's exciting because there's so much low-hanging fruit out there. The industry, as I read it, is really, heck, you still see faxes used an awful lot. There's so much way to improve the customer buying experience, the selling experience, the closing of the transaction. And so really what we're seeing is innovations coming through the door that are improving that customer experience through clever uses of technology all the way along the way. We're also seeing some beautiful design aesthetics coming through, and of course I'm not touching on, we talk about patents and trademarks, there's of course copyright and confidential information, there's other things to protect, but some of the ways that companies are using the graphic imagery on computers to sell product is also another really impressive area of growth that I'm seeing. So lots of runway left. I would say another kind of couple of hot points is that AI and blockchain, they're hot technologies by themselves. When you put it into real estate tech, again, I'm sure your audience knows, there's just a whole bunch of magic that's ready to happen in the real estate industry.
Now, one of the things that I think about, because I was a part of 500 startups in Silicon Valley, is I go, even if I had some cool tech that I patented, is there not someone who in Silicon Valley or some part of the world could like figure out how to do it pretty much the same way from the consumer's eyes and just get around the patent, just doing it slightly differently?
Sure.
That's a thought that goes through like the tech owner's
Absolutely.
mind. What do you say to a person who's like thinking like that?
So I want to say that to starting off with, I think that's a healthy instinct. It's a healthy question to ask. I find sometimes, because if maybe people have bias to a particular outcome, which is I don't want to deal with an IP lawyer, or I don't want to even do this, they can kind of answer their own question a little bit too quickly and kind of steer themselves or talk themselves out of it. But you can really be very clinical about this. It's quite easy to see what standard pricing is to go get a US patent. And I'll just quote from some of the economic surveys. Depending on the market, we'll just say it's about 10 grand to start the whole process. And then maybe on the upper end, you're looking at 40 to 50 to walk out and hold yourself an issued US patent. And then you're asking yourself, well, what have I really got now, right? And so, gosh, if I have to enforce it, it's going to be, and this isn't an exaggeration either, it can be $3 million to go ahead and litigate against it. But now we have to put ourselves in the position of if you're a potential infringer. And infringing a US patent is a bad thing. And if you get caught doing it knowingly, you can wind up having punitive damages raised against you. So it's not just the $1 for damages, it's $3 for damages. Basically, you can triple the award for damages. So if we look at that $50,000 outlay, let's say that's what it is, and that's probably on the high end, but we'll say $50,000 to hold an issued US patent. If you're talking about protecting a market, and I'll use a small number, $1 million a year. Well, for 50 grand, even if you never wind up successfully suing on that, you're going to cost the other side at least 50 grand in worrying about it. They're going to spend that money on lawyers themselves. You're going to slow down the management team. You're going to slow down the development because they're going to have a good look at it and they're going to have to spend that time engineering around it. So what I'm trying to say is that even in a worst case scenario, If you're going to hold that 50 grand that you spent against the potential of protecting $1 million a year in revenue, that's a fairly small percentage of even a patent that is unsuccessfully enforced. Now, I like to just take the optimistic approach is that if you're going to get good patent counsel, they're going to write you something that's enforceable and scary off the bat. And again, if you're looking at protecting $1 million a year in revenue, you're going to find a business case to go ahead and shut down that other side. I'll just add one other thing is that truly most patents don't ever wind up going through litigation. The most standard thing that happens is that they are accumulated in companies and they should be a reasonable spend of an overall budget. And they're transacted, they're seen as part of the value of the company. But as you say, if you get to that end game, even a weak one is going to slow down your other side somewhat.
Oh, the speed, okay. What are some of the other reasons, like why tech companies should be, apart from slowing them down, creating barriers of entry, like maybe particular with trademarks, like you're just trademarking your name, and most people, why would they want to try to copy your name? Or what are some of the things you feel like this is where trademarks are really most useful for?
Well, this is great because really what we're doing is that people come to an IP lawyer and we say patents and trademarks, but they're two extremely different things, right? One is really, as I say, protecting that brand experience, and the other one is protecting some technological innovation, your cure for cancer, if you will. So when we kind of look at the brand experience side of things, really trademarks are a no-brainer for any business. And if you're B2B, maybe they're a little bit less valuable. I would still say you have to go get one. B2C, it's not even a question. That relationship with the consumer is how you make your money. And that trademark registration is how you have the legal right to enforce that relationship that you have built with the consumer. The Apple trademark, I don't even know how many billions of dollars it's associated with now, the Coca-Cola trademark. And let me sort of, if I can put it this way, is that what is a brand experience? Well, you're trying to create an association in the mind of your customer with you through a logo or design. It's kind of like Pavlov's dogs. You hear that bell ringing, or you hear that, and you start drooling. And you want to reinforce that over and over again in the mind of the consumer. So if anybody's just allowed to kind of nibble around at the edges of that, you're starting to kind of weaken that very, very tight relationship that you've built, that you've nurtured. And trademark registration, relatively cheap, and it's one time. So in the US, you use a service like Trademarkia, you probably do it for hundreds of dollars. You go to, and it can be valuable to do this, you go to a traditional patent trademark counsel to do it, probably done for $1,000, $2,000, something like that. It's a smaller number, and you're done. Well, the minute you've got that, you've got domain name enforcement ready to go. If you want to go and enforce a domain name takedown, you just show your trademark registration. If you want to do an app store takedown, and not everybody's in the app world, you show that trademark registration to Apple or Google, and they will immediately take down somebody else's. But if you don't have that registration, you're digging yourself out from a hole.
So I have so for example, I have a trademark on Parkbench.
Yeah.
And then someone created a domain name called parkbenchteam.com.
Yeah. I
can just go.
You're going to have a very easy time shutting that down because of the fact that you've got that core.
I'm coming for you.
That's right. That's right.
I was like, how does someone just do this? That's hilarious. Okay. Now, have you seen people start to trademark weird stuff? Because I'm thinking one of the other things that we thought was weird that we wanted to see if we could stop was we have a way of advertising to get clients to the real estate industry, and other companies would have the same way.
Yeah.
And we find now people are copying other companies a lot in the way that they do marketing and advertising to attract the same customer base. Have you seen people try to trademark so that your ads can't look and feel the same as ours, because then it creates confusion in the prospect, and our funnel to get clients is really good. I don't want you to muddy it and increase the price of it by copying exactly what I do.
Sure, there are some really creative ways that you can come and tackle that. Registering a trademark around the look and feel of a particular web page, and I think assume that's what you're talking about, or a computer interface experience, is a little tough until you define something that is consistent and repeatable, something that's fluid and changing. A little more challenging, but it's possible. And there's some other registration systems called the design patents, where you might be looking at some sort of combined registration for an industrial design or design patent, as we call it, with a traditional trademark. And then there's another very powerful unregistered trademark regime called unfair competition, where what you're talking about, that's a little less easy to kind of point to saying, that's my trademark, but I'm still creating confusion in the consumer as another tool in the toolkit. So yeah.
Interesting. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Have you seen any changes in the laws? So I'm sure there's lots of like laws and policies and bills and all this stuff that impact what you do.
Sure.
Have you seen any changes that have made a big difference in the last 3 to 5 years? And moving forward, there's this new thing that just came out in Europe where they're basically now telling Google and all these big
copyright side, right?
the news snippets, they now have to get taxed. And so, like, I don't quite get how they can even do that. So, like, one, what changes have happened in the last 3 to 5 years you think have made a big deal? And then what stuff are you seeing? Because as almost like a GDPR, and then now there's more stuff coming that's going to just tighten things up even more.
Yeah, so those copyright law changes that are coming through in Europe are fascinating, and I have to be honest with you, I'm still trying to digest, what are the implications for everybody. And of course, we know that I think Wikipedia decided to even go dark for a day in protest of it. And so certainly, when you look at Europe, things like GDPR and these copyright changes, they're unfortunately they're a cost of doing business item of understanding them, building it in your business plan, and getting ahead of them. I'm afraid I don't have any kind of silver bullet solution other than you're just going to have to be aware of it and get in front. On the U.S. side, probably the biggest thing that's been happening is the challenges around so-called business method patents and the difficulty that is now spilled over into getting software patents in the United States. And what I say to tech startups is that these kinds of changes on the patent side of things, they go on all the time. They've been going on since the 50s, where the pendulum swings back and forth. And you have to really look at a 20-year horizon on a patent, not what's happened in the last 3 to 5 years. So make sure you come in there looking at the business case and being aware that this is a risk factor, that it's harder to get these kinds of patents through in the U.S., but that doesn't mean they're impossible. They're still done all the time. The other thing that's happened in the U.S. is that so-called patent troll activity. I don't know if you're aware of that, but these are companies that will accumulate patents and then go and sue others that don't have patents. Much harder to run a business anymore that is based on that. And overall, there's probably some good in that it takes some noise away. Honestly, for startups, there's probably some negativities too, because when a startup fails, that asset is the last thing that they have left. And let's face it, sometimes it is a big company that's gone and taken the IP and these sort of patent trolls, as they call them, out them, or the nicer way to say it is non-practicing entity. They served a real purpose for those companies that just couldn't get to the commercialization stage, but genuinely what they did was ripped off.
Yeah.
So so that's another change and just another thing that people have to adapt to in the market.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any
things that you're seeing in the future that people need to assume will likely be in place, so they have to start planning for it now?
I think more good stuff. We're seeing more international treaties, so it's possible to get, and it has been for a while, to go and get an international trademark registration. Canadians, that's going to be much easier to get now. It was actually very hard to get an international trademark registration for Canadians. The U.S. has had that for a while. There's an international system for registering industrial design, so I mentioned design patents too a little earlier. Both U.S. and Canada are now part of that, and you can very cost effectively get yourself international protection. Please watch for China. I think that China is now the largest patent filer in the world, and people continue to say to me, what's the point in enforcing or filing there, because it won't be enforced. And I say to you that the enforcement side of things is maturing exactly the way the rest of the economy is maturing. And maybe IP enforcement is a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 behind the rest of the maturation of the economy. But you can expect that as the Chinese economy matures, so will their IP protection. And already there are some very significant cases of North American and European companies successfully enforcing theirs. So don't discount your patent filings or your trademark filings in China.
Very cool. Okay. What are some of the challenges when a company wants to get a patent, they want to get a trademark, and then all of a sudden it doesn't go through? What do you find are some of the common reasons as to why?
I think it would be mostly not doing your work up front. And that's tricky too, because another pitfall is that startups will have trouble deciding that they're going to do it. And then when they do decide to do it, they'll get paralyzed by wanting it to be perfect. And so not being able to let go of the draft, or waiting months and months and months because they're too busy, but they want to read it over. And then by the time they get around to filing for it, it's too late because somebody else has got in. Sorry, you know what? I got distracted on the. When a startup wants to get a patent or a trademark, right.
What are these common
things?
So dragging their feet.
So dragging their feet, but also So when your question was when they don't go through, what are the usual explanations? And it's usually poor homework up front. The trademark was already being used by somebody. They filed for it. They used a trademark that was purely descriptive. You can't have a trademark that describes. It's got to be something that differentiates you over somebody else. And then likewise on the patent side.
What do you mean by that, differentiate versus describe?
Yeah. So it's the two D words. And so if you're a company that makes giant hot dogs and you call yourself the Giant Hot Dog Company, that is only describing your product. And therefore, you can't get a trademark for that because you're effectively taking the words giant hot dog out of the English language and saying, I'm the only one who can say giant hot dog. Again, all I've done is used English language to describe my product. The aluminum cup company, similar kind of challenge.
Right.
But if you were to Shazam hot dogs, well, the word Shazam has no association with the word hot dog. So you're now distinguishing your product as opposed to describing it. Use some more simple examples. Apple has nothing to do with computers, so it distinguishes computers over other companies.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So that's a very, very common pitfall.
How about you? You have a business, you're growing. What are the challenges that you guys face?
Well, this is where I like to feel really a lot of kinship with my clients, is that I'm really going through the very same journey that you guys have. PCK is about 19 years, my gosh, coming onto it this year. But what I do are the same things. I watch P&L, I look for growth opportunities, look at what my competition's doing, how I can do it better. And when I get a chance to work with companies, I actually get the joy of having a mentoring relationship because I get to learn just as much back as I do when I'm giving the other direction. But something that we take pride in ourselves is, I think in the legal industry, we're known to be agile, nimble, quite different. For a firm of 15 attorneys, we punch at the same level with the clients that we carry. I sort of talk about it like we've set ourselves in the market like that boutique Swiss bank that you go to. It's small, nobody's ever really heard of it, and oh my God, do they do amazing work.
Is there, now you talk about using technology to have improved your business and to be able to offer that amazing service.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things you've implemented, and is there anything that you're thinking about implementing to get even better from a tech perspective?
So I'm looking for fundraisers, funding myself right now. We have one particular product that we're calling Auto Docket, and this uses a combination of artificial intelligence and OCR. Actually also working with another Toronto-based company called SortSpoke, and what we do is use the SortSpoke engine to teach the AI how to read patent and trademark forms from all over the world. And this is a fairly rudimentary data entry function, which is totally boring to you guys as clients and something you're not willing to pay for, understandably, but requires a very skilled individual to be able to understand literally 200, 300, 400 forms from different patents and trademark offices around the world. So we've taught an AI to read these documents and automatically take care of the data entry side of things. This has reduced errors, it's improved quality, it's reduced the time frames. We don't have a cost really associated with it. And the other thing is it's wonderful. The attorney and the client get notified at basically exactly the same time. So we've been running this for 3 years internally. It's absolutely working fabulously for us, and we're now on the road seeking funding to demonstrating a beta product. We've got a beta installation going with another Norwegian law firm, and we're looking to see if we can get this tech out of our firm and into many others. There's a whole bunch of other cool things that our engine does in the background in terms of reminding clients of things. It's kind of hard to imagine it without seeing it, because you as the customer are only just sort of getting the end product. But a lot of stuff that was done by a person now that you're going to be receiving in your mailbox is all coming out of our system. Yeah, all coming out of our computer system. Yeah.
I wonder if there's any lawyers afraid, like realtors, of technology, and they're taking their jobs away. And
yeah, I hear that a lot, and I think that technology disruption has been going on since the Industrial Revolution,
it's happening for everyone.
That's right. So we all got to adapt.
But really, the upside is there's a whole bunch of that research stuff that I did not really like doing, and now it's going to get done faster and better than I could ever even do in the first place. So it gets me more on the strategy piece, the higher level piece, or some other
exactly. It's all about the attitude you approach it. It's an opportunity. It's not a threat.
We talked about the costs. If you're doing a patent or a trademark,
yep.
So trademarks are cheaper, hundreds to a couple thousand.
So your trademark side, if you want to get yourself a U.S. trademark, you use one of the .com services. I think they do a little $600-700. Of course, in the domain that you still need a smart attorney, you're probably looking more like a couple of grand at that point. And then on the patent side, you're looking at $8,000 to $12,000 to get the process rolling in the U.S. And of course, if you're going to go Europe and China, then you got to budget for that appropriately. I tell everybody, don't be scared about it. What you need to do is come in, again, understand your own financials, and just like you buy a house insurance policy, perfect audience to understand that. You got $1 million home, you're not going to spend $1 million on house insurance. You're going to look for some premium that is a reasonable percentage of that house. And even if, back to your earlier question, even if the policy may be a little bit wonky when it comes to flooding in the basement, you're probably still going to buy it. It may not even be a bulletproof policy. Yeah. So you can do the same thing with your IP filings, which is how much revenue am I trying to protect, and what's a reasonable budget to spend on that. And there are objective resources out there. You don't need to worry about whether the attorney is pulling your wire. You can shop around with attorneys, or you can go look at these surveys and know that you're at the right price point. And you can come at this very unemotionally in terms of the spend that you're going to make on it.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so say I get my patent, I get my trademark, and it's really two different things. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the trademark. So I have a trademark. Sure. Someone's infringing on it.
Yeah.
What do I do, and what do I need to be? What are the expectations of the time and the money to now go get this thing dealt with? Sure.
So I have to start with that. This very rarely kind of a one-size-fits-all, but the sort of general pattern you're looking at. Once again, what I tell everybody is start with the money. What is the risk that's at play here? You've got X amount of revenue. How much revenue do you think that they're going to take from you? What's the overall market? Maybe your revenue is X, but you think the market should be 100X. What is the threat? And try to kind of quantify that. And from there, that's where you're going to work backwards on what is a reasonable legal spend. So you have a look at one of these target companies, and if it looks like the guy's going to fail next week, let him. Why bother going aggressively, or put them on notice with a simple lawyer letter. On the other hand, if you are in a much more vanilla scenario where you just got to go head to head with them, the process starts with the usual nasty letter from your lawyer. The lawyer will research what the other side's doing. They'll put together a brief of all of what your trademarks are, and off goes a letter to the other side saying you better stop. If that fails, you're likely going to wind up in a court somewhere. In the U.S., it's usually federal circuits. In Canada, usually wind up in the Federal Court of Canada somewhere. And you initiate the lawsuit, and hopefully along that lawsuit process, there's going to be a settlement along the way. You're probably likely also going to have to get ready for them to attack your trademark at the local trademark office. They'll find some way to try to get rid of the registration before it even came out. All of these are things to view just like a project, like any other project. And as you're going and looking for counsel, I encourage you to look for one that's project-minded, that will help you understand all the stages along the way, and how each stage can be used to apply leverage on the other side to settle. Everywhere along the way, you should be trying to look for a way out with that threat in the background of what the lawsuit can look like. Frankly, it's very similar on the patent side of things, and again, starting with that kind of financial analysis is key, because it's going to inform what a smart legal budget ought to be.
So he serves both U.S. and Canada. So if they want to get in touch with you to learn from you or to get help from you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so check out our website at pckip.com. My name is Andrew Currier. You're going to find me on the site. I'm the C in PCK. So that's pckip.com, and feel free to shoot me an email or get me on the phone, and I'll be happy to spend some time with you. We have mostly flat fees. I don't do billable hours, especially on consultations, and I'd love to help you out.
That's awesome. Hey, that's it for today's episode. So if you have not already subscribed to the show, so you can learn more from professionals, so you can build a big business and you can be successful and do what you wanted to achieve when you even started out as an entrepreneur, then subscribe to the YouTube show, subscribe to the podcast, and stay tuned for another episode so you can learn more from experts like Andrew over here. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.